A banker looked at his screen and saw $242 million sitting in an account that shouldn't have existed. No project, no paperwork that made sense, no airport, just a hole where an entire fortune used to be. And when investigators finally pulled the thread, what they found wasn't a hacking group, not a cartel, not even a team of criminals masterminds with years of training. It was one man wearing another man's identity, who convinced an international bank to hand over a fortune for an airport that was never going to be built. By the end of this video, you understand exactly how he pulled it off and why nobody caught it for years, and what finally brought the whole thing crashing down. Stay with me, because the ending of this story is something almost nobody expects. It started in the mid-1990s in Nigeria with a man named Emmanuel Nwude. He wasn't a random hustler. He was a respected banking executive, a director at Union Bank of Nigeria, someone who understood exactly how international finance worked, how banks communicated with each other, how trust was built between institutions, and most importantly, that trust could be exploited. Nwude set his sights on a target most people would consider untouchable, a Brazilian bank called Banco Norris. He didn't approach them as himself. He approached them as someone else entirely, the governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria, a man named Paul Ogoma. Think about that for a second. This wasn't a small lie. This was one of the most powerful financial figures in an entire country, and Nwude decided to become him. He reached out to a director at the Brazilian bank, a man named Nelson Sakaguchi, and pitched him an opportunity that sounded too good to walk away from. A brand new international airport was being built in Abuja, Nigeria's capital. The government needed private investment to help finance it, and in exchange for that investment, there would be enormous returns plus a personal commission of $10 million for Sakaguchi himself. Here is where it gets interesting. A pitch like that should collapse the moment anyone asks a real question. So, Nwude made sure nobody could. He forged official government documents. He set up fake phone lines that would ring through and sound exactly like they were coming from Nigeria government offices. He arranged in-person meetings in Lagos and London, sitting across from bank executives, looking them in the eye and playing the role of a government officials so convincingly that experienced international bankers never once suspected they were being deceived. And it worked, not once, not for a small amount. Over the course of roughly 3 years between 1995 and 1998, Sakaguchi kept the money flowing, wire transfer after wire transfer, deal after deal, until the total reached an almost unbelievable number, $242 million. 191 million of what was straight cash. The rest accumulated as interest on a deal that had never been real in the first place. Now, here is the part that should terrify anyone who thinks large institutions have strong internal controls. This fraud went completely undetected for years, not months, years. A major bank was hemorrhaging hundreds of millions of dollars into a fictional airport, and nobody inside that bank raised the alarm. The money didn't just vanish either. It moved through international banking channels, with some of it landing quietly in the Cayman Islands and some of it being converted into luxury properties and assets scattered across the globe. Nwude wasn't just stealing money, he was making it disappear into a system built specifically to hide wealth from anyone looking for it. And so, how does a scam this massive finally fall apart? It wasn't a whistleblower. It wasn't an anonymous tip. It was something almost accidental, a business deal that had nothing to do with the fraud itself. In 1997, a Spanish banking giant called Banco Santander began negotiations to acquire Banco Norest. And when you acquire a bank, you don't just take their word for how much money they have. They audit. During that audit, something didn't add up. A massive amount of the bank's liquid capital appeared to be sitting dormant, parked somewhere it shouldn't have been, tied to a deal that had no verifiable backing. The number matched $242 million. The fictional airport had finally left a paper trail that someone with a fresh eyes was forced to examine. Once that discrepancy surfaced, everything unrevealed at once. This wasn't a case one country could handle alone. It triggered a coordinated criminal investigation spanning 5 nations: Brazil, Britain, Nigeria, Switzerland, and the United States. Nigeria, embarrassed and under pressure, created an entirely new agency just to deal with fraud on this scale. The Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, known as the EFCC. This case would become its very first major conviction, the one that put the agency on the map. Nelson Sakakuji, the man who had approved the deal on the Brazilian side, didn't get to walk away either. He was arrested at John F. Kennedy International Airport in New York and extradited to Switzerland to face trial. And Banco Norest, the bank at the center of it all, could not survive the blow. The financial damage was so severe that the bank collapsed entirely in 2001, wiped out by a scheme built almost entirely on forged paperwork and a convincing voice on the phone. Desperate to contain the fallout, the families who owned the bank personally paid the full $242 million in an attempt to salvage what was left. It wasn't enough. The bank's reputation and its existence were already finished. Back in Nigeria, the case against Nwude moved forward. One of his accomplices cracked fast, confessing to the scheme and receiving a 2.5-year prison sentence, along with an order to repay more than $25 million. Eventually, Nwude and another accomplice pleaded guilty as well. Between them, they were handed prison sentence totaling 25 years. His assets were seized and returned to the victims of the fraud. But here is the twist that makes this story stick with you long after it ends. In 2006, Nwude was released from prison, and instead of disappearing quietly, he went back to court, this time not as a defendant but as a plaintiff, arguing that many of his assets had actually been acquired before the scam even took place and should never have been confiscated. Incredibly, it worked. He managed to recover $52 million worth of property and assets. And then, years later, in 2021, Nwude made a claim that stunned people all over again. He said he hadn't actually been aware of the full $242 million scheme, and that his own legal team had pressured him into pleading guilty decades earlier just to make the case go away faster. Whether you believe that claim or not, it adds one more layer of misery to a story that already feels almost too outrageous to be true. What makes this case so unforgettable isn't just the size of the number. It's how simple the method actually was underneath all the complexity. No hacking, no high-tech tools, just confidence-forged paperwork, a fake phone line, and the willingness to look powerful people in the eye and lie without flinching. It exposed just how fragile trust can be inside even the largest financial institutions in the world, and it forced Nigeria to build an entire agency dedicated to catching the next person who tried something like this. Now, if this story left you shaking your head, imagine how many more scams like this are sitting quietly undiscovered right now, waiting for the wrong audit to finally expose them. If you want more true stories like this one, deep dives into the biggest cons, his and fraud in history, make sure you subscribe so you will never miss the next one. Drop a comment and tell me which part of his story shocked you the most. Share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Hit that like button if you made it all the way to the end, and consider joining our YouTube membership to support more content like this and get access to exclusive perks. See you in the next one. Bye bye. Thank you for having me here, Doreen.